I should come to the US and show them some proper love making. So if you want the golden touch, you gotta go Dutch. That's what I say. Are you
Oh,
recording, by the way?
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have our bumper. Welcome to the official, unofficial Sea of Thieves podcast, a podcast dedicated to Sea of Thieves and other rare games, but mainly Sea of Thieves. Today, we will focus on Larinna's story as depicted in the Athena's Fortune novel. This is an episode that's long overdue, but with the latest update, Larinna is now in the game as a new NPC, so hey, that's a happy coincidence. Yeah, we totally didn't know she was coming to the game. Us delaying this podcast to fit a recent character's appearance is totally not planned. So, in this episode, we won't do an entire discussion of Lorena's story. I am still on my mission to keep these podcasts shorter. So, today we will only be doing a summary of her entire backstory, which should still be very interesting to listen to. But it will not be my voice you will be listening to most during this podcast. Someone way cooler than me has that honor.
I don't. Hello. Good morning and good evening. Whatever time it is you're listening to, UNIBALL. Back again.
All right. That's, oh my God. I said cool person and then you butch your intro.
Yep.
All right. Welcome. I'm happy to record. It feels like it's been a while, right?
I'm so
Since we were on
glad
the
it
podcast.
feels like it's been a while because it felt like it kept. I kept coming on here and I was like, I'm getting sick of this place.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing.
No problem.
But anyways, I'm glad you're here. And real quick, I want to remind all my listeners that we won't do messages in a bottle anymore as part of the regular podcast. Answering questions from subscriber will get its own individual podcast. So please keep those questions coming. Maybe Uniball is going to be in an episode. I don't know. I need to ask him. He's probably going to say no.
Yep.
So, so before we go into her summary, please keep in mind that Lorena's story is just one half of the Athena's Fortune novel. The other part is all about the Pirate Lord, and we already did 2 entire podcasts all about him. Links to those will be in the description. I did them with Uniball. They're very heavily researched. It took a lot of us to make those. So hey, make sure to check those out if you're interested in that. So let's go into Lorena. Who is she? Where does she come from? And what is her relationship with the Pirate Lord? All these questions will be answered during the summary. And yeah, Uniball, I believe you prepared this.
Okay, Lorena. Who is Lorena? So Lorena, we just, as Captain Blubber said, she's now entered the game. She's the head of the Bilge Rats. Yeah, but where did Lorena come from? So Lorena is a character who made her way to the Sea of Thieves before we did. Her character is described as someone who's always seeking adventure. When she was younger, when, you know, it was described that when somebody gave her a treasure map, she would always go to the edge of the map because she didn't want to follow in somebody else's footsteps. So she was always seeking adventure. And one day she found a message in a bottle and it was a map. She always heard about this, you know, this place, the Sea of Thieves. And so she wanted to go there for more adventure. And she was looking for people to take her there. And eventually she found a crew that were talking about it, but nobody really take her. Like, you know, as she was growing up being an adventurer, she was trying to learn how to sail by herself, but she knew she wouldn't be able to make it there by herself. So she's trying to, you know, find a crew that would take her. Eventually she couldn't find a crew, but heard a crew was going. So she stowed away. She stowed away on a ship and made her way to the Sea of Thieves.
And she hid in a barrel, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
barrel. I think it was onions.
Really cliche, but oh
yeah,
well.
Yeah.
There you go. It's a video game novel.
Yeah. So when she gets to the Sea of Thieves and she realizes that they stop, she quickly cleans herself off and makes her way to the tavern to celebrate. And then of course she gets drunk and passes out, and then
that's why I like her so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she wakes up the next morning, and as she wakes up, it's kind of like us coming into the game for the first time. We wake up in the tavern. There's a parchment on the table with a dagger, and we're kind of like we don't know what's going on. Anyway, the same thing happens to Lorena She wakes up.
Yeah.
She has that parchment in front of her, and it turns out it's her map that she used to get to the Sea of Thieves. But when she gets her map, she realizes there's words on the back, and she flips it over, and it says, "Seek Athena's fortune."
Ooh,
Right?
mysterious.
Yeah.
So very similar to how we start the game, right?
Yes. And then
Yeah, and I think that's the goal of the story too, to kind of have these similarities.
have her be like us. So, and in the book, she's described as tall and wiry. So she's like an imposing figure. That's what when you see her now in the game.
Hot.
And according to Captain Blubber, hot.
Yeah, I've looked up her voice actors too. Man, she's mighty fine.
Okay.
All right.
What a weirdo. So while during this first introduction of Lorena, of course she meets the bartender. During the night of celebration, she lost all her money, but she remembers that she always carried a coin in her left boot for emergencies, and this coin comes into play later on. But the barkeep asks her, explain how you got here. I don't know. Does she? I forgot. Does she tell the story of how she got there? Or I think she does, right?
I think so. Yeah, like I think she trades her story for free grog, and I think that's how she does it.
Yeah, grog
Or
and
she trades it
breakfast.
for free breakfast. Yeah. So, which is great. I like that.
Yeah, and then the barkeep he says it's rare to find a new arrival who doesn't have a crew to call her own. You got to be very brave or very lucky to make it here by yourself. And this is just, Lorena knows she needs to find another crew because she's now in a new world and it's probably pretty dangerous for her.
And she doesn't even have a ship.
Yeah, she doesn't even have a ship.
She has nothing.
She has nothing. She has that one lucky coin, but she knows she's broke because all her money's gone from the night before. So what she does is, she's in Sanctuary Outpost. That's the first outpost she gets to. And she notices there's a bunch of bananas on the island. And she's like, well, maybe I could sell these fruits and make some coin that way. And so she sets up a banana stall, which you can find in game, or I guess it's south of the tavern.
Yeah, it's in Sanctuary Outpost. I think it's to the
sure
east.
It's south. No, you're wrong.
Yeah, it's southeast. I think it overlooks the docks too, because in the novel it says, oh, she found the rowboats and she built a stall and she made it so that it was easy enough to find, but also that she could look over to the docks to see all the incoming ships and all the trade going on. And if you go to Sanctuary Outpost too, you can see that stall there, and it's also overlooking the docks.
Yeah, there's 2 docks at Sanctuary Outpost.
Yes. Yeah, it's closer to the other dock where the Merchant Alliance is not. So it's close to that dock.
Correct. Yeah. And I wonder if they ever make. Yeah, that's interesting because that dock's never used, or by us. I mean, some people.
Yeah.
But, anyways, so while Lorena's trying to make some coin with her banana stall, she meets 2 pirates. One named Little Ned and the other named Faisal. Ned's described as he's just a big lumbering big dude, and Faisal's kind of short, shaped like an egg, and they're having an argument, and she's trying to temper their argument, and then they end up kind of liking her, and they mention that they're short a crew member, and they mention the crew member's name, Kyrie. I don't know if this has any. Do you know if they use the name? I was trying to remember if they use that name anywhere in the game. Kyrie.
No, there were a bunch of names that were named in the novel. A lot of skeletons that got named too, but I couldn't find it in the game anywhere as those names. So nope.
Okay, so yeah, they mentioned that one of their crew members is gone, and Lorena asks, why did you guys leave Kyrie behind? And they said because they couldn't get the shark up the ladder. I thought that was funny. So anyways, they kind of like Lorena, and they said they'll go talk to their captain about her, because she mentions to them she's looking for a crew. And they tell her, first, well, you need to go get a weapon first because she didn't have anything. And as they leave, Lorena notices there's a dagger in her rowboat stall, her banana stall, and there's a note on it. It says, "Seek Athena's fortune, Lorena. I mean it." And then towards the end of that first chapter of hers, and it says, whoever was following her was clearly angling to end their days as an oversized pincushion, which is clearly foreshadowing. So anyways, so the next chapter I think the next chapter is fairly short.
Oh, can we talk a bit about her weapon? Like, where does she get her weapon from?
Yes, this is in the next chapter.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't actually write that much.
I'll keep quiet.
I didn't actually write that much, but in this chapter, yes, she goes to search for a weapon. Yeah, and she goes to a shop, Wilbur. And
yes.
Do you want to talk more about this? Because I didn't write much about this.
Well, just a little bit, because the only thing I want to mention about Wilbur is that he's a guy, not a female, and all the other weaponsmiths are females. But he does start with a W, and the W stands for weapons. So Wilbur is a guy, but he's still named with a W. Later, he will get replaced by Wanda, who also gets replaced with Winda or
Wanda.
Or
Wanda.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that one.
Wanda gets replaced by Wanda.
Yeah, which is a bit weird, but it's fun to know that the original owner of that weapon style was called Wilbur. And was a guy. So little tidbit information there.
Yeah. So yeah, Lorena, she eventually gets a cutlass from Wilbur. He tries to sell her on all these different weapons. Talks about, oh, this weapon was used by yada yada yada.
Yeah, this will make your tits bigger if you buy it.
Does he say that?
Usually, no, but it's the usual promotional talk, right?
Yeah. So at this point in the story, I think she's going to go back and try to talk to Ned and Faisal, and she notices they have like 2 prisoners on their back. They bring them back to their ship, and their ship is called the Unforgiven.
Yeah, that's a really cool name, by the way, the Unforgiven.
Yeah. And then she knows that the prisoners get thrown off the ship. I forget who these prisoners were for, but Lorena, ends up going talking to them, and then she notices a figure running towards their boat, and they mention that that's their captain, and that their captain, she likes to make an entrance, and this figure is actually running from people. People are shooting at her, and she's trying to make her way back to the boat, like racing. And Lorena's like, should we help him? Like, oh, don't worry. She likes to make a show, first impressions or whatever. And so this captain, her name is Captain Adelhide or Adelhide. Mm-hmm. How do you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
Adelhide?
I think it's Adelhide? German, so it's Hyde.
Adelhide. So Captain Adelhide, I think she's described as a middle-aged woman. Anyway, she gets onto the boat. She grabs one of the cannons, turns it back, faces the jetty that these pursuers are coming after, and she fires a cannon at the jetty or the dock and just blows it to smithereens. And that's like
doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't kill anybody.
It's PG.
Yeah, but that's your first. But they do kill people at one point.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
But this is your first impression of Captain Adelhide. But they bring Lorena aboard, and then they talk to her, and they mention that that they had just recently lost a contract or a bid for one of these trading companies, and that they can, since Lorena was a new face to the Sea of Thieves, nobody would know that she would be working for them. So they are like, for your initiation, maybe you can try to get this contract back for us from the Order of the Souls.
Yeah, I remember when I was reading it, like, who are these 2 dark shadowy figures? First, I thought they were like associates of the Reapers or something like that, because they were clearly chasing somebody.
Yeah. The very last sentence says, "Let's retire to my cabin. I'll tell you all about the Order of Souls."
Yeah. I also like the little dynamic Larinna and Adelhide have, because I think Adelhide is meant to be kind of like an older version of Larinna.
Yeah.
Like they both are very resourceful, very no nonsense type of girls. But Adelhide is way more experienced, and I think that's meant to be that way. Adelhide is meant to be a kind of older version of Lorena. I thought it was really interesting.
So that is the introduction to Captain Adelhide, and then next chapter. So Lorena, the chapter starts out with Lorena talking about how she loathed the trading companies because, as it was described earlier, Lorena was kind of an adventurer. She kind of did her own thing. Probably somebody who didn't follow the rules. But she loathed the trading companies because they felt like it was a cage. that you had to kind of go by their rules and do whatever. So because then it transitions to where she, in order to help Captain Adelhide's crew, she needs to go actually talk to a trading company. So we find out that she has to go talk to the Order of Souls to get a contract. When she goes there, the interesting part about this is the person that she meets is a male, again, a guy named Winston Phoebus.
Yeah, sadly doesn't start with no. Missed opportunity. I don't know why.
Because I think he's hesitant at first to offer her anything like a good contract or anything like that. But she mentions the name Simeon, or how do you pronounce it? Steel-Eye Simeon. That's how I pronounce it.
So I pronounce it Simon, but that's just because I read over some letters.
I mean, I think it's Simeon, right?
Yes, probably. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can pronounce however you want. I pronounce it Simon. So there you go.
So she mentions this name, this Steel-Eye Simeon, and which catches Winston's eye. He's like, apparently this was a somebody of interest to both Captain Adelhide and
she was told by Adelhide to name drop that name.
Yes, and that's So Winston Phoebus, the Order of Souls guy, he then offers up the contract to Lorena. He tells her to bring his head, and Lorena's a little bit confused what that exactly means, because she thinks it's
they played up like a big mystery, but everybody who played the game knows what's going to happen, obviously.
Yeah. So Lorena thinks it's just like a bounty. It's just like a bounty mission where they're going to go capture somebody. So
and she's all down for it. Yeah, let's kill people.
Yeah.
Why not?
So the crew of the Unforgiven end up going to a fort, and when they get to the fort, things start. It's kind of weird. Like they're trying to be sneaky, and when they get there, like things are weird. They start noticing weird noises, and then all of a sudden skeletons are popping out of the ground, and they all get surrounded by skeletons, and then boom, like chapter ends.
Yeah, which was a bit weird because obviously the entire crew knew they were going to fight skeletons except Lorena.
Yeah.
And they purposely did not tell her that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
And like that's not a good crew. You tell your crew what they can expect, right? So they don't panic when it actually happens. But I don't know. I guess they were trying to test her still.
Yeah, I think it was still part of the initiation process. And I think they were just kind of having fun with her too.
I think so too.
Yeah, the skeleton sack. So then as we circle back, because the book, it toggles between point of views. So when we come back.
And timelines.
Yes. So we come back to the following chapter. It describes their fight with the skeletons and using different weapons, cutlasses, blunderbusses. And then she describes the skeletons are actually trying to eat bananas. And she's like confused why they're trying to do this. And some of the skeletons were fighting each other. But eventually they find there was like a main skeleton that they end up defeating. This was the skeleton of the Steel-Eye Simeon.
Yeah. Wasn't he wielding two cutlasses at the same time?
Ooh, I can't remember.
I had it in my notes. One of the skeletons were using two cutlasses.
Okay.
So I thought it was interesting.
Gotcha. So they get his skull and they travel back to Sanctuary Outpost to the Order of Souls, but this time instead of Winston Phoebus, they talk to Madame Aculia, who is the sister, who is mentioned as the sister of Winston Phoebus. And so when she gives her the skull, she starts doing, the Order of Souls ritual thing that they do, where they start taking the memories from the skull. But at this point, Lorena doesn't know what the hell's going on, but we do, if you played the game. And then as she's kind of like smoking the memories or whatever she's doing, they start flowing, like the symbols start flowing onto a piece of parchment. So it's like writing something during this ritual. And Lorena was given specific instructions to get that. I'm pretty sure they were told to get the parchment. Do not take gold as a reward. Get the parchment. Get whatever was written on the piece of paper. She knew that's what she needs to do. But Madame Aculia wanted instead, pay her in gold for her services. And Lorena's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then she was like, I'm going to fight. If, I'm going to take this, no matter what. Even though there was two figures that walked in that were dressed as Order of the Souls figures, and Lorena's like, I don't care. I'd rather die, trying. At that moment, the two figures revealed themselves to be Faisal and Captain Adelhide, and they ended up
part 3 of the initiation.
Yeah, they ended up, so it was 3 versus 1. They were able to grab the parchment and they pieced out and they raced back to their ships. And as they were racing back to their ships and sailing away from Sanctuary, there was a figure high on the cliffs watching them go. Do you remember that? Did you catch that?
I don't. That's a good catch. I think I read over it.
So I don't know. Anymore. I mean, I'm assuming who the figure is.
Yeah.
But it could be somebody else too. So on the piece. So chapter 10 now, which we're on. So now they have the piece of parchment. On the parchment, it says, "On strangled shores, my ship you seek. Begin your search at Tribute Peak." Ooh, a Rito. So
yeah, which this is really revealing about the Order of Souls, by the way, because we thanks to this novel, we actually really know what their day-to-day operation is. Like, they get the skulls, they get the memories, and they put the memories on a document, and those documents are those riddles, and they sell those papers to the Gold Hoarders, and the Gold Hoarders sell back to other pirates. So it's interesting how they work together that way.
Yep, and the merchants just sit there and shovel pig poop all day.
Nobody wants to work with them.
Yeah. So at this point, it mentions begin your search at Tribute Peak. They go and search for Tribute Peak. They're like, oh, Tribute Peak's in the wilds. It's a mapped out area already, and it is completely accessible at this timeline. So they're like, all right, let's go sail. So they're sailing to Tribute Peak.
Can you explain what Tribute Peak is for
Tribute Peak? Is also known as the Shores of Gold, which is the location of the last tall tale. So this point is completely accessible, so they can just sail there. As they're sailing, Adelhide kind of tells the backstory of who Captain Simeon was. She explains that she was actually a deckhand of Captain Simeon's crew, and during her time there, she heard that Captain Simeon was looking for the Athena's fortune. And at this point, Lorena is, she's kind of taken aback, and she's like, oh, was it Captain Adelhide who was planting all these notes for me to seek Athena's fortune this whole time, kind of like pulling her leg? But then Lorena thinks, based on the seriousness of Captain Adelhide, telling the story, that it probably wasn't Captain Adelhide leaving these notes. It was probably somebody else. So during the storytelling, it is said that Captain Simeon thought that the Athena's fortune was the most valuable treasure of the pirate lord, and that's what he was after. So obviously he's been going after this thing. That's why Captain Simeon's name was important to the Order of Souls, because it probably had clues that led to Athena's fortune. They're cruising along to Tribute Peak. They notice that they're being followed. And they kind of come to the conclusion that it was probably a bounty put on their heads from the Order of the Souls because they pissed them off. And as they make out the ship that's following them, and it's a ship called the Black Gauntlet, led by Captain Quince. So, and then they describe the Black Gauntlets as a reinforced ship, hard to damage, et cetera, et cetera. So they decided this weird plan, which is not implemented in the game, which I thought was kind of cool. But they took a mirror. Little Ned took a mirror on their ship and started flashing lights to the Black Gauntlet. And the Black Gauntlet's like, what are these guys doing with this mirror? Then all of a sudden they noticed that all the kegs that they had stored on their ship started to get hot and light up, and then they exploded. So little Ned was actually lit the kegs from his ship using the reflection from the mirror to light them.
It was before the firebomb update.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, the Black Gauntlet is now completely ablaze. I think they get into a little bit of a skirmish with the Unforgiven. The Unforgiven took some damage, and I know Faisal got hurt. Well, they actually took a lot of damage.
They sailed to, I think, Thieves Haven for repairs.
Yes, that's the next chapter. Jeez. So while they're at the Thieves Haven, they make a mention of the Black Witch at Shipwrecks Bay. They mention them hunting. I think Captain Adelhide makes fun of Faisal, like, oh, you're at the Black Witch hunting for Captain Skulls again, which is a reference to Pendragon. So, but while they're at the important part of them being at Thieves Haven is that they find a bunch of journals and a bunch of notes, and they find Ramsey's crew's old hideout / workshop. And they find notes to these cannons that were designed that can fit pirates in, that he could shoot pirates out of, even bigger pirates. And they also find a cursed chest. They find a chest of sorrows. And so while they're there, they notice that the Black Gauntlet has fully repaired and has spotted them at Thieves Haven and is circling Thieves Haven. So they're kind of figuring out what to do. So they decide, Lorena has a crazy plan. She says, shoot me out of the cannons with this chest of sorrows. I'm going to go sink the Black Gauntlet. And that's what they do. They load her up. Which is not, you can't do that in the game right now. You can't load up a person.
I wish you could. I wish it would be so cool.
Item. Yeah. So she's actually holding the chest of sorrows and gets fired out of the cannon, and takes a couple tries for her to get on the ship, but she eventually does. Locks the chest of sorrows in the captain's quarters and watches it starts to cry and fills up the boat and sinks the Black Gauntlet.
Yep. Super awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Which is the thing that a lot of people do too. Like, just to troll people, is throw a chest of sorrows on their boat and watch them sink.
I've got some clips going around where I did that. It's faster just to shoot them with cannons, but it's more fun to do it with the chest of sorrows.
Yeah. So the Black Gauntlet sinks, and so the crew, they repair their boat and they make their way back to Tribute Peak. But when they get the Tribute Peak, so they finally get to Tribute Peak, they realize there's another crew that is there. I never got this part. Did the Order of the Soul send another crew that just beat them there? I don't know. I mean, they mentioned them as mercenaries, but any event, when they reach Tribute Peak, they notice that there's another boat there. But then they kind of also realize that on their parchment, it's like a riddle, and they need to solve these riddles for clues to figure out how to reach wherever they're going, right? So the first riddle was on Strangled Shores, my ship you seek. Here they find a ship on the shoreline, I believe. This one was, I joined the birds atop the roast, and once inside I soon deduce my place below the tumbling sands with light and shadow neath my hands. I forget exactly how do you remember how they get to this one?
Oh no, I don't at all. Nope.
So
like, oh yeah, dumb riddles.
Yeah, so I think
they'll solve it eventually.
They eventually so once they find the ship, then it leads them to a cave where all the braziers are. If you've done Tall Tale 9, you'll know what I'm talking about, and it reveals a map of the island. They use that map and they further go along the island, and they discover that other crew that was there tried to ambush them. They eventually they kill this other crew, which is they actually kill them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which I thought was, yeah, they killed them. Then they reach the next clue was the statues. Like if you like, again, you have to be a Tribute Peak or the Shores of Gold to kind of visualize.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
because they describe the statues exactly how they look like too in the game.
Yeah.
Which is so weird again, because this novel was written way before this Tall Tale, and the details, they match up so perfectly that you really need to pay respect to all that planning that Rare did with this game.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So the next set is, you have to, in one of these statues, there's an entrance underneath, and Adelhide climbs up the statue, goes through a passageway, and she ends up opening up that entrance from behind.
Just like in the game.
And so the rest of the crew goes in, and then they realize, they see the Gold Hoarders trading company like marked there. So there's
key symbol.
Yeah, there's another door that they need to get through, and they didn't really know exactly how to do it. But since it's the Gold Hoarders, Lorena then grabs that lone coin out of her boot and places it on, I guess, maybe like a placeholder payment for entrance, and it worked. And then the passageway opened up to the chamber, or the whole, what is
belly
it?
Of gold.
The belly of the gold. Yeah. So that's where that coin comes into play later on. So as they're going along into the belly of the gold, Faisal's getting pretty nervous. he tells the backstory of the Gold Hoarders and how the first Gold Hoarder may still be down there protecting Athena's fortune, and that was a long time ago. So this guy's like a skeleton, or if he's still alive, or if he's still anything, that he's probably down there. So they're a little bit nervous. They come across this rope bridge, and it's like a rickety old bridge. It's just that classic, like, this is gonna be used at the end of the movie type.
Yep.
Rope bridge.
Kind of Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Which is also, I think that bridge is also in the game.
I believe. Is it? Which one is it? That's what I was trying to think. Or is it
gone? I think it's the first. Well, it's gone. Well, obviously it's gone, but I think there's still remains of it that you can see. When you go down for the first time in towards the Valley of the Gold, just before you do that little cave with all the spikes, just before that, you can already see the ending of the entire gauntlet, so to say. There's a big gap, like a big chasm, I think the right word is.
Yeah.
And I think you can see remains of a bridge.
Oh, that's where the bridge was. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and take a look.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I haven't checked it, but I feel like there are remains.
That's probably it. Yeah. No, that feels like it's probably right. Yeah. So as they are continuing their way down in the Belly of Gold, they start talking about what they would do with all the money that was down there. I kind of like, I forgot what everybody says, but the one that stuck out the most is that Ned said he didn't care about the money as long as he could still do his pirate stuff. He was fine.
Yeah.
So,
which is so weird. It's so video game-esque. Like I watched that I told you about it. I watched Cutthroat Island, and at the end of the movie, the pirates have all the treasure, and they don't have to work any single day. There's so much treasure. They don't have to work anymore, like the entire crew. And then they're like, yeah, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna retire? And everybody's like, no, let's keep on being pirates because that's fun. Like, that's not fun. You can die.
Yeah.
You can live the rest of your life in luxury,
scary.
or you can have a very short life in misery. Like, choice should be obvious, but hey, that's movie and video game logic, I think.
Yeah.
Adventure is always more important. I know what I choose.
Yeah. So as they eventually make it into the chamber of gold, like the big chamber that you see
with all the piles of coins.
Yeah, just too much that you can carry. And as they enter, it goes on describing like the whole place. It's just like a lot, but as they're down there,
see how well we planned this in advance.
As they're down there, the Gold Hoarder awakens and they begin to fight. During this fight, there's another cursed chest in there that is mentioned, which I don't think it gives a name, but it's definitely the chest of rage in there.
Yes, good spot.
So it explodes maybe once or twice. I think at one point Faisal gets buried, but the fight is like super intense. It's very long, and they're having a very difficult time fighting the Gold Hoarder. And then at one point at the end of the chapter, the Gold Hoarder grabs Adelhide, pins her to the ground, takes a shovel, and kills Captain Adelhide. I threw away the book at this point. Anyways, so after he kills Captain Adelhide, they're still fighting, and the Gold Hoarder he actually speaks. He goes, "Treasure. Thieves." And Lorena, she realized that this guy can talk, and she's like, maybe I can try to bargain with him. So she tries to bargain with him. He's like, we weren't, we're seeking blah blah, we weren't here. So anyways, but he's not having it. I think so. This is where I missed this part. Somehow Ned and Faisal are able to escape at this point.
Yes,
I think maybe they went the passage that when you defeat him in the game.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's how they escaped. And Lorena didn't really saw that because of some debris that was in the way.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know anything. She knows Adelhide's probably dead, and she can't find Ned and Faisal anymore.
Yeah. So Lorena then I guess tries to run away, and she leads him to that old rickety bridge that we're referring to.
The foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing, because she knew how heavy he was and that maybe he would probably crash through the bridge. So she leads him to the bridge, and it kind of starts to happen where I think he's right. I think he's going through the bridge at this point. Or
Yeah,
he's
kind of like Indiana Jones moment. They both are on
yeah.
the rope bridge.
Anyway, she cuts the bridge, right? Or she cuts.
Yes.
Yeah, and then as the bridge is falling, he leaps and he grabs her,
Yeah.
just like a movie
This
moment.
is kind of fake out there. Like, oh, did he go? Did he survive? Did he fall? But he didn't fall. He didn't fall. Sorry.
Yeah, and then he ends up grabbing her leg, and then she grabs an axe to try to free herself by like chopping at him. And so in the game, like we don't have axes in the game, but she has an axe.
Nope.
Aye. So eventually she, she chops off the Gold Hoarder's hand after a couple tries, and the Gold Hoarder then falls into the abyss. And then the hand is still on her, kind of wiggling. And then she's like holding it and kicking it away. And she's finally able to get the hand away from her. And when she does, she realizes she's holding a black ring in her hand. And she doesn't think anything of it, and she just kind of pockets it and tries to get out of there. And then so when she does finally get out of the belly of the gold, she notices that their ship's gone. Faisal and Ned obviously just were able to escape, and they took the galleon. So she finds that mercenary ship that was there. It's described as a mercenary ship in the book, and she needs to heal herself. So what does she heal herself with? Bananas.
I know. Bananas. The answer to any problem in the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. And then since Lorena has experience sailing on her own, she was able to get the galleon up and running, and she starts sailing away from Tribute Peak. And then as she's sailing, she sees a ship in the distance, and she realizes that it's the Unforgiven. And she
bunch of dicks leaving her alone.
Yeah, well, they didn't know. They thought they didn't know. They assumed she died too, and they explained that to her. And so she reunites with them. She joins them aboard. They talk about what happened, and they ask her if she could be their acting captain, which she was, I think, taken aback by. Then they mentioned the Ferry of the Damned to her.
Yes.
They said,
finally
mentioned the Ferry of the Damned. They mentioned that people can find themselves in the Sea of the Damned, and then upon the ferry, and then if they're lucky enough, the helmsman, or what's he called?
The ferryman, I think.
The ferryman. Yeah, why did I just brain fart on that? The ferryman will let you go back into the world of the living.
Yeah, if you're young, healthy, and supple enough, you get another chance.
Yeah. So yeah, they mentioned that. And so Lorena at this point realizes that, being dead is not the end in the Sea of Thieves.
The Sea of Thieves. It used to be, but since the introduction of the ferryman, it's not anymore.
Correct.
It does take a while for Adelhide to spawn back.
You just spoiled the next chapter.
Oh.
Anyways, you forgot an important piece at the end of this chapter.
All right.
Is as they're leaving, the shroud starts to encroach back onto Tribute Peak, and it reclaims Tribute Peak in the shroud. That's why we need the shroud breaker to get to it, because as we all know, the shroud ebbs and flows. So now we're at the last chapter. Captain Blubber has already spoiled part of it, but so they end up going back to Sanctuary Outpost, and Lorena makes a mention. She's like, if Captain Adelhide does come back, she'll be expecting us at Sanctuary. So they were hesitant to go back because that's where they kind of messed with the Order of the Souls, and that they might not be welcome. But she was like, this is where Adelhide will expect us. So they make their way to Sanctuary. With what little money that they were able to scrounge from the belly of the gold, they used to repair their ship.
I think Faisal and Nat took some treasure when they fled, right?
Yes, and they used that to then celebrate. So basically, they went to Sanctuary and they got drunk again at the tavern and telling the stories. The crowd was, fascinated with their stories that they were telling. Everybody was having a good time. But then they mentioned like, well, but you may need a bridge. Maybe Salty the shopkeeper can help you build the bridge at Tribute Peak. Because obviously the one was just cut.
Name drop.
Yep. So they also mentioned during the celebration, they mentioned the Karnath, which is a card game.
Ooh.
But that's one of the names
used. Content.
That's one of the names used for one of the, streamer mode, Karnath,
Mhm.
right? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I trust you.
I think it is. Anyways, so that's something to mention that so I have a feeling something will happen with Karnath eventually.
All right.
So, but anyways, at this
Wait,
point,
what's Karnath? It's a card game.
it's a card game that Faisal teaches Lorena.
But anybody can play it if you have a deck of cards, right?
It depends. It depends on the deck of cards. I mean, if it's, because there's other games that use cards that are not like, your traditional 52 ace through.
Oh,
king.
It's not a 52 deck.
Don't know.
Karnath.
Like there's there's a game called Sakura, which is a Japanese card game that has no numbers. It's just pictures on the cards.
All right.
Which I actually just bought a set of.
All right.
Anyways,
Nerd.
So they mentioned Karnath. So I thought it was, so obviously, that might be something later on in the game. Maybe they've already introduced a board game to Sea of Thieves. Maybe they'll introduce a card game.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be okay. And then
I wouldn't mind if it's fun.
You could get exclusive sales. And on the sale it'll say UNIBALL.
With your face. I would say with your face every day.
Heck yeah. That'd be awesome. So just for everything I mentioned in these podcasts are coming true in the game. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, yep. Just another reminder that developers are listening to our podcast.
I'm a future
Which is
talent.
true, by the way, for the people listening. Like, I'm not making that up.
But yeah, I'm the key to Sea of Thieves. That's the end of the book. That's all. So that's not the end of the book. So as they're celebrating, everybody, the night is getting late. Everybody's leaving the tavern. But Faisal, Ned, and Lorena are still there, but they're passed out. Lorena's still awake. Then she starts to notice something happen, like on the floor of the tavern, and like a passage starts opening up. And she's like, "What is this?"
Congratulations, she reached level 50 in all trading companies.
Yeah. As she makes her way down the passage, the song "We Shall Sail Together" starts playing, and it's very soft, which everybody got dinged for, by the way, all the YouTubers recently. I don't know if anybody knew that.
Really? Because it's copyrighted.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for that sub. I will not use that song.
So I got dinged, and then Liquorless mentioned he's like, oh, you and I think a bunch of people got dinged for that song, which I thought we could use. Apparently it's not. Anyways.
I only got dinged because I was using the F word too much.
You did?
Yeah, in the podcast we did with Liquorless, the hot and controversial topics. Yeah, I'm not making any money on that one.
Oh, well.
Which is, not making money in general, but, even less.
Yeah. Actually, in Liquorless's Discord, somebody posted that link to it. Maybe like a week or two ago.
Oh, to our podcast.
To that one, yeah. He's like,
oh, sweet.
Yeah, one of the members, Hogbog, was like, hey, I just found this. I didn't realize that they did this thing.
Oh, that you were on this podcast with this unknown YouTuber.
Yeah. No, Hogbog knows who I am.
Small channel. That's nice. I need to get Liquorless back on the podcast too. That was fun.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, so moving on. They hear the copyrighted music. Lorena, she makes her way down the passage, and she ends up in the pirate's hideout. What we know today is the pirate's hideout. And she sees, this big ship. It's a tavern. She sees Ghost, and then she sees the main dude, Ramsey, the pirate lord. And then so she speaks to Ramsey. Ramsey kind of tells her that, he tries to bring people in that he feels that are adventurers,
hot, sexy,
or whatever,
and fit.
And then he makes mention, she's like, well, you're a ghost, what about the Ferry of the Damned? And I think he mentions that, back in beforehand, there wasn't a Ferry of the Damned. So when you died, you died. He then starts fiddling with his necklace, which is called the Reaper's Mark, which then indicates that is the reason why he's still a spectral figure in the world, that medallion is somehow has brought him back. Which
is really interesting. And we discussed in our previous podcast. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Check that out.
So at this point, it's it is revealed that he's the one that, gave her the message in the bottle. We can assume that he was the person on the cliff watching her sail away. I could also assume maybe it was Quince, but it was probably the pirate lord watching them sail away. And then the ring that she had ends up being
the ring she took from the Gold Hoarder.
The ring she took from the Gold Hoarder was the same ring that he took from Ramsey.
Yeah. So Rathbone, the Gold Hoarder, took that ring from Ramsey before, and he kept it as his own. And Lorena took it back, kinda. Yeah. And originally, that ring is, of course,
Ramsey's wife's ring.
Indeed.
He mentions, Lorena asks, what's the significance of the ring, and he mentions that it's like, a young man who fell in love, or talks about like making mistakes as a young man, or he mentions this person in third person. Says, this is a young man, he fell in love, and that ring was like his wife's or whatever. But Ramsey also asks Lorena if she wants to have a drink with him. But Lorena, she actually refuses, and she says...
It sounds so rapey.
Yeah, it's my wife, but she's gone now. Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink, you and me. I'll make you a pirate legend. Yeah, I know. It usually takes 6 months to do, but you can join anyways. Come on over, girl.
So anyways, Lorena, she refuses to have a drink with him, and she explains that she's like, next time I come down here, I want to have like stories of my own. Basically she wants to become a legend before she feels like she has the right to actually be there. She doesn't feel worthy.
Yeah, she wants to dance to her own beat, right?
Yeah. And then as she's leaving, she turns and asks Ramsey, who was she, or what was her name? Because Ramsey makes mention of a young man with the ring. That was the significance. But then, Lorena, of course, put two and two together that Ramsey was referring to himself and his wife. And she asked him, what was her name? And Ramsey tells her Athena. Which is Athena's fortune. So Lorena then leaves the pirate legend hideout, and she gets into the tavern, and she's there with Ned and Faisal. And lo and behold, in comes Captain Adelhide, who's returned from the Ferry of the Damned, which you spoiled not too long ago. And then she explains to them that she was on the Ferry of the Damned with Captain Quince. Captain Quince was being a butthead. The ferry was not going to let him through. But what Adelhide, she talked to Captain Quince and the ferryman, which then they agreed to forgive their mishaps with the Order of the Souls. So Quince was able to go through to do that. So Adelhide as well came through. So they didn't have to worry about the trading companies anymore going after them. So they were free to do whatever they wanted. And they asked, what should we do?
I think Little Ned suggests to do... No, Faisal just suggests, I think, to do pig collecting. And Little Ned is like, that. Nobody likes collecting pigs.
Yeah.
And then they do something else. I think it went something like that.
Yeah, so they go through the different trading companies. And then this is a very important part of the book right here. So a lot of people gave this game crap for not having a lot of content. They said all you had was 3 trading companies. You had Gold Hoarder, Order of Souls, or Merchants, right? So in this part of the book, it mentions like, what should we do? Like they ask themselves, what should we do? Should we do Gold Hoarder? Should we do Merchant? Should we do Order of the Souls? And they all said none. We're all going to go out and do whatever we want and make our own adventure. And that is the key to this game. That was the main point that the developers wanted, is that this game, they gave you 3 objectives to do. But the main point was for you, the player, to make your own story. And this part of the book, this very end of the book, it kind of lays that out, saying, you could do these things to progress these ways. But in actuality, we want you to create the stories. Like, we give you a point A to point B. The main point of this is, what do you do in between point A to point B?
Which is true.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful message. You always kind of need some sort of goal, but I get, because a lot of people are complaining that Sea of Thieves is a bit grindy. It is a grindy game, but it's not about the grind. It's about, your crew and the adventures you do while you're also doing that grind. So that's nice.
Yeah, and that's basically how the book. Message. That's basically how the book ends. Is that you go out and make your own adventure in the new Sea of Thieves. Dun, 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 play the Maiden Voyage music,
and then the music plays. It's a great final message. Thank you for that summary. We will probably discuss Lorena in future podcasts, where we will go over all the mysteries in the story, because there's some, some questions we still need answers to, like what is the significance of the dark eyes of the Order of Souls, for example? What does it mean, and other stuff. So we will go deeper, even deeper into the lore, but also potential hints to the future. We kind of hinted at some, but we will go over all of them. And we will probably also do a location guide where we match up the locations from the novel to the locations in the game. But for now, hey, this is it. So if you like these discussions I do with other YouTubers, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It does really help out this podcast. So I would like to thank UNIBALL for, again, being amazing. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Uniball Gaming, or you can just search Uniball on YouTube.
There's a slight chance you get a ballpoint pen.
No,
but
I'm number one.
All right, and I myself can be found on this very channel you are listening to this podcast on. So please subscribe if you don't want to miss any other future podcasts. And after that, go to Uniball, of course, and subscribe to this channel as well. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. You, the listener, are also amazing. So stay safe, do something daring, and have a nice day.
Oh, so long, everybody. I'm kind of distracted.
Yeah, I can tell.
I think they removed
the
copyright.
You want to keep it at so
claim.
long, everybody? You want that?
Yeah, we're keeping it at that.
Ending?
Yeah, yep. Keep it at that.